Welcome to episode 4 of Higher Thinking. I'm Darren Jaffrey, HireView's General Manager for EMEA. In this episode, we're going to focus on one of the most important topics in talent acquisition: diversity, equity and inclusion. Our guest this week is a resourcing and inclusion leader with years of experience driving change. She's joining us today to share her expertise and deeply personal story. Let's go and meet her. Welcome.
Thank you.
To Higher Thinking. Nice to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Before we find out a little bit more about you and your career, we always start with a few rapid fire questions to get to know you a little bit better.
Let's do it.
Morning coffee chat or afternoon happy hour?
It's a hard one because I don't drink tea or coffee and I don't drink alcohol, but I'm not a morning person, so I'm going to go happy hour.
Very good. Work from home or in the office?
Home.
Hire for experience or potential?
Potential every time.
Attitude or education?
Attitude.
Best in class benefits or unmatched company culture?
Culture, and then benefits that reflects the culture.
Very
Bit
good.
of both.
Bit of both, all right. So just going back to the start of your career, if we can, before we bring you up to the present. How did you get into the field of talent acquisition? Who are some of the companies you've worked for and the roles that you've done?
My career really started around asking why. It was really around, this is what the market looks like. That doesn't exist, what you want. You can have this, and actually this is who wants to work for you, and this is who doesn't want to work for you, and this is why they don't want to work for you, and this is what you can do to change it. So, and that was an organisation called TalentWorks, and I worked with a really great bunch of people there. And my biggest frustration, like a lot of people that don't work in-house, was that, you were doing all this great stuff, but you weren't on the other side of the fence to really see how that was implemented, which is when I made the decision to go in-house.
Okay.
And I went in-house as an internal recruiter. And
where is this?
At Travis Perkins.
Okay.
And that's where I met kind of my first head of resource in there, who was a massive inspiration to me. And that's when I realised actually I wasn't that great at recruiting. But what I was really, really good at was kind of looking at things differently, really asking the why. Why do we do things like that? Why can we do things differently? And I sat down with my boss after 6 months and, just sifting through CVs and, handing CVs over to hiring managers wasn't really my forte. It wasn't something, I could do it. Was I passionate about it? Not really. Yeah. It was about asking, why do we do things like that? Can we do things differently? So I sat down with my boss and he said to me, your heart's not really in this. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get sacked. And he said, actually, you can do more. And that's when he promoted me into a resourcing manager after 6 months. So my career really elevated quite quickly. And that's when I started looking at different things. I looked at, ex-offender scheme, and we'll talk about kind of what I did. And then I was made redundant. I moved over to Balfour Beatty, again in resourcing business partner roles. And then I moved on to, I did a little stint at Argos when it merged with Sainsbury's. And then I'm at Motorpoint now.
And you've been at Motorpoint for how long?
Just over 4.5 years now.
Okay,
so.
And your role at Motorpoint is?
Head of resourcing and ED&I.
Okay.
So I look after everything resourcing, employer brand and equity, diversity and inclusion.
You've touched on it a couple of times already as you talked about your career journey, but DE&I is clearly featured prominently in your career and a subject you're close to. Can you share with me your passion for inclusive hiring and also societal equality more generally?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think for me, it started from when I was a child. Every role I went into, nobody really looked like me, and I'd kind of look up and there was no representation, and I'd meet people across my journey and they'd have the same experience as me, and it started from that kind of going, but why have we always done it this way? So it was that questioning. But again, it went back to from my schooling. I started as the only child of colour in my school, and you know, my experience.
Where did you grow up?
In Northampton. So I was
Okay.
born in Leicester, but I grew up in Northampton.
Okay.
So my experiences were very, very different. But even kind of coming into work, having to act in a different way, or, you know, leave a little piece of myself. At school, I'd have to leave a little piece of myself at home. And then going into work, having to, and I thought, if I'm having to do that, a lot of people are having to do the same.
That's a really strong phrase. But I want to understand what it means. What does leave a little piece of you mean?
So I'd have to kind of come in and leave like my culture behind, or leave a little piece of me behind, and be somebody that I wasn't at work, to fit in, to be like everybody else that wasn't, you know, I was almost playing a different part of myself at work, and I was doing that at school, I was doing that, and it's really exhausting, because actually all that time I could just be spending thinking of great ideas, innovating, and, you know, if I was doing that, and it was always that why.
Yeah.
Why am I having to do that? Why are we doing things? And I was just seeing a lot of things, and I think throughout my career, I was always very quietly pushing for change and looking at ways we could do things different. Before, you know, Edie and I was a thing. You know, I was always, you know, anonymising. You know, I was anonymising CVs years and years ago, because I knew that there was biases there. Yeah. Now it's a normal thing, and people are doing it, and everyone's going, "Let's anonymise CVs." But I was doing this years ago because I was seeing which CVs were not being picked out of a poll, and I knew exactly why that was happening. But in 2020, you know, after the murder of George Floyd, I made a real promise to myself that actually I can't let this carry on. I need to actually speak up, and I need to do something. And I made and not for me, it was for my nieces, my nephews. I really made a promise to myself that actually I've got to put my head above the parapet. And some people will hate it and some people will love it, but I have to do what's right, and I have to make sure that I'm, you know, do what's right. And that meant in my community, that meant in the workplace, that meant, you know, everywhere I go, I've got to really stand up for what I believe in, and make a stand and do the right thing. And that means that everybody can be who they are wherever they go, whether that's at school, whether that's in the workplace, whether that's in the community.
And they don't have to leave a little piece of them behind.
Behind, yeah, absolutely, because it's really exhausting. Yeah. It's really, really exhausting, and everybody is fantastically flawed and brilliant, and you know, all of that time, whether that's at school, whether that's in the workplace, that time can be really spent innovating, thinking of great new ideas, and we all look at things differently, and that's what makes ideas form. That's what makes, you know, innovation. And all of us have fantastic ideas. We all look at the world differently, and that's what makes fantastic ideas. And we're missing out on that if people feel like they can't be heard. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody, you know, the quietest person in the room is probably the one with the greatest ideas, and sometimes they don't feel like they can speak.
You give them a voice.
And I wanted to make sure that, you know, they've got a voice. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that they can use it, and they've got the space to use it.
Something you talked about there, there's an inquisitiveness about you, and an ability that you said that you said the word why maybe 20 times already, which is great, and I love that. Not what, not how, but why. Where does that come from? Does that come from your parents? Does that come from your upbringing? Is that just you? Where does that come from? Because so many people go through life not asking that question enough, I think.
I don't know. I think so many things just didn't seem right to me as a child growing up. It just didn't make sense.
Okay.
I think you just have to question why. I think if you just look at the world today, you have to just look at it and go, why? And I always thought, and I think it kind of took me back to go, actually, what is my why? Why am I here? And I really believe that, you know, I am in a place of privilege, being in the roles that I've been in, you know, and I've had being in people function, being in the resourcing function. That's, you know, I'm in a place of privilege that actually I have an amount of control over, you know, who gets through the door, who you know, people within the people function, I always say that, you know, we have the ability, and it might sound really cheesy, to change people's lives.
Oh, we certainly
We
have you all the
absolutely
time.
do. So
I totally agree.
we have a real responsibility here to make sure that we do the best we can to make sure people have the best experience coming through the door. And when they get through the door, they get the best experience to do their training and development. We make sure that everybody has equity through every part of the experience, because we spend a lot of time at work.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's our privilege, and we have to make sure that we don't, you know, we don't play, well, we use it, and we do the right thing.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's lots of pluses and minuses in any industry, but in the world that we occupy, you obviously in the corporate side and us as a vendor, when that person gets a job, it is fundamentally a life-changing moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no question about it. Now, it may not be for the rest of their life, and it may be for a finite period of time, and it might help them to actually understand who they are and head off in a different direction. But it changes their life in a way that very few other things do. So. And
their families' lives, it has a domino effect. So we have, you know, the ability to do that, and sometimes people need, and I always say it's not just about giving everybody the same experience, it's about giving people an equitable experience, it's that people-centric experience, it's about doing the right thing, and we've evolved now and we've got the opportunities out, so we've got to do the right thing.
Hiring is obviously one part of ED&I and the whole experience we do. It's a fundamental part of it. But how do you ensure that at Motorpoint it's kind of an inside-out approach and it's not tokenistic in the way that it's delivered? And
that's it. And I think that's it. So we have re-looked at all of our whole recruitment process. So we have almost gone, right, how do we start this from scratch? How do we make sure that this is a fantastic recruitment process? We are going to be launching it in the next couple of months, and we've re-looked at our ATS, and we've looked at all of that great stuff in the whole process itself. But we could have done that really quickly. We could have gone, right, this is our new recruitment process, and we could have brought a whole load of people in. But once they get through the door, we've got to make sure they're coming into an environment that is going to support them. So if somebody is neurodiverse, what have we got in place that's going to support them? What facilities do we have in place? Our accessibility from a digital perspective, and just the culture. You know, actually this is a massive journey, and I'm yet to meet an organisation that has got it spot on. You know, if anyone knows, if they have, let me know. But this is an evolving journey that everyone needs to go on. Does it need to take as long as it is taking any organisation? I'm not sure, but this is an evolving journey, and we need to make sure that, because I have been in organisations, you know, across my career, where it's not been the most comfortable place to be, you know, whether that be my schooling, and getting it right is so important, because otherwise all you do is you just perpetuate the same. You know, you see a whole load of people that look like you on career sites, and you go, oh my God, I'm going to go in and this is going to be great. And then you find out that the 3 people that they do have were the 3 that were on the website. Yeah. So it's really, really important that, you know, we're clear with the journey that we're going on. It's authentic, and we are really taking the strides that we are going on, and we're clear with that. But the work is being done. It's really, really important that the senior leadership team own this. It's not the responsibility of whoever heads up ED&I, and it is the responsibility of every single person in that organisation to go on this. So whoever does come in feels included, whoever you are. So that recruitment piece is almost, you know, it's in the middle. It's not the first part. Yeah. You've got to get the inclusion, you've got to get the equity, and then the diversity kind of follows.
It comes with it. So Hannah, very rightly, there are a lot of conversations at the moment about DE&I and hiring. But how do we get really diverse talent through tangible change? Because I've heard you previously say that we need to move away from a one-size-fits-all approach, and that we've got to be people-centric. What do you mean by people-centric?
So I think it's about really just asking people what they need. So I think, for example, if I use neurodiversity, for example, what one person needs isn't going to be the same thing as what somebody else needs. So I think it's being really, really clear on you know, what I always say to my team is just ask people what they need. Ask people what they need throughout the recruitment process, and don't just ask them once, ask them again and ask them again. So it's almost, I think, when we've previously looked at hiring, it's been like, this is the process and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
People are going to need different things. So what I need in a recruitment process might be very different to what you need, but it doesn't mean you're a better candidate than me just because I need something different. So the way that you might need I might need the questions beforehand, you might not.
Yep.
You know, you might need extra time for your interview, I might not. So we've just got to make it really, and that's what I mean by people-centric.
It makes sense to me now. So what you're saying is that people shouldn't fit in the process should work for the people.
Absolutely,
okay.
Because otherwise we're going to miss out. And the way that the hiring market is at the moment, there is more jobs than there are candidates. And if we don't change the way we do things, we're going to miss out on some really great talent, because there is some really great talent out there. But because they don't fit in processes, we're missing out on some really great talent.
What's the candidate reaction when they're talking to a potential employer that actually is prepared to listen to them in terms of what they need to put their best foot forward? That must reflect well on your employer brand, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, you know, for me, I think there's always been, you know, I am neurodiverse, I have hidden disabilities, and previously I would always be worried to tell someone that. And I think we've really got to move away from people being worried to tell people about any disabilities they have, any, you know, neurodiversity they have, because immediately you'd think they're not going to want me. But actually they are some real, now for me, you know, organisations missed out on me because they couldn't offer remote working, and look at us now, look where we are now, everyone's remote working, we've proved that we can do it, but I missed out on opportunity, or they missed out on me, should I say, because they couldn't offer me remote working, but here we're all doing it now, it works. And the amount of people that organisations have missed out on that are, you know, disabled, that can work, but just need a little bit of flexibility. But people have been afraid to put that onto their application forms and won't disclose it because they think people will see that and they just won't offer me the interview. And I believe that it has happened as well. So we've really got to change the way.
Do you feel like we are? I mean, I look at it from a HireVue perspective. We've invested an enormous amount of energy and time to make sure that we are not excluding neurodiverse candidates from a process that's could potentially be quite challenging for them for all the reasons you've just talked about.
Absolutely.
Preparation time, facing a camera, doing assessments. You know, we've thought about it, considered it, worked with a company, Integrate Partners, to basically, you know, just validate that what we're doing is right for neurodiverse candidates. Do you see that from other vendors as well? I mean, or not other vendors. Do you see that from the industry generally?
I think absolutely. I think from a hiring perspective, I think absolutely. I think this goes back to that inside-out approach. I think, you know, absolutely from a hiring perspective, we absolutely see the value of it, and I think processes are changing, and I am seeing it change, and people are asking people to disclose and be really open. But then what I really want to see, and I think it is changing, it absolutely is how do the managers then support the people when they get in? Because what I would hate is people to come in and have a really great hiring and then managers don't give them the support that they need afterwards.
How are you helping the managers to be the managers that they need?
So there's loads of great partnerships out there. So, you know, actually managers don't have to do this all by themselves. There are so many amazing partners out there that will come in and train and support and give you the ongoing partnership that you need. Long gone are the days where everyone has to do everything themselves. There are so many amazing partners and charities out there that will help and support you.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing. We're engaging with loads and loads of great partners and getting the training and giving them the ongoing support. And actually 9 times out of 10, you just ask the person, again, ask them, what do you need, what support do you need, and they'll know what they need and they'll tell you what they need.
Yeah.
We all know what we need.
Sometimes the simple things are the best things, aren't they? So.
What do you need? Do you need like what do you need anything? Tell me. And regular one-to-ones, conversations, talk about it. What do you need? And just ask them.
So I mean, we've seen just a ton of research, obviously, on the topic, and very clearly HR teams across all shapes and sizes of organisation want to focus on DE&I correctly, but oftentimes they don't know how to start. How do you approach that? How do you start? Do you start with one area first and then expand on it? So maybe something like race or gender or neurodiversity, or do you just take a broader approach to it?
So I think it's a really difficult one because there is a lot of controversy whether ED&I should even sit in HR or whether it shouldn't. So I always think ED&I should almost, it doesn't sit in HR. It sits broadly, it sits across everything. So that function sits across all areas of your business because it isn't a HR. And I think the minute you start thinking of it as a HR function,
it's pigeonholed.
You stop thinking about it of the importance of what does it mean for marketing? What does it mean for facilities? What does it mean for finance? What does it mean for your digital? It spans across every single area of your life. Every single person in your organisation has to think about ED&I. Realistically, that should have the same importance as legal has.
Yep.
It should have the same. You should think about it as legal because there might be things that you want to do in your business that actually has conflicting views with actually what you're doing. If you're really taking it seriously, that's where you should be. It isn't, and the minute you start thinking of it as a HR initiative, it loses its value, and it actually, it's not. You're not giving it the importance.
I think the only way you probably get to enable that though is building rapport with kind of key stakeholders in the business, right, and working
Absolutely.
with the executive team,
Absolutely,
because
absolutely.
you are challenging the status quo of an entire business.
Absolutely, it's cultural transformation, it's cultural enrichment, and you've got to have the buy-in from your senior leadership team to do that.
How do you work with your exec teams?
And that's exactly, it is, you are challenging the status quo. So, having that senior leadership team buy-in, but, sometimes you are challenging them as well, Senior leadership teams, sometimes they're not, it's a really tricky one because their judgment calls are not always the best call because they're not the people that are the ones that are impacted by a lot of this stuff. When you actually look at who sits on senior leadership teams, they're not the ones that are most impacted by the ED&I. They're not in marginalised groups, for example. So sometimes it will be your ERGs that are the ones that are the ones that are going, actually this is what needs to change. So ensuring they are open to listening, having exec sponsors that are there to just listen sometimes and not be the ones that fix it, not be the ones that make the decisions, but just listen.
Are you coaching them to understand this?
There is a lot of coaching.
Yeah.
There's a lot of coaching.
Yeah. Because I wonder how else, particularly working with executives, and we all have to do so. They're busy. I get that, and they're inherently want the best for the business, but they might not necessarily know what the best for the business is, right? So they have to be coached along that.
They've got to see it as part of their role.
Yeah.
They've got to see it as part of their role. It's not a nice to have. It's a must have.
Would you say that in the organisations you've worked in, you've managed to achieve that? So that
Not all of them, no.
Okay.
Not all of them, no.
Okay. That's
No.
a very honest answer. One of your LinkedIn recommendations. So whenever we have a guest on, I do troll through your LinkedIn profile, but it said this. I'm going to read it actually. It said, Hannah leads with integrity, passion, intelligence and kindness, and I'm proud to be part of her continued fight for equity for all. I mean, that's a lovely thing to have written about you, and it's very well deserved. I mean, they're all qualities that we would all aspire to embody. How do you ensure that the values you advocate through your work are also the ones that you deliver to your team as a leader?
So I'm really, they might tell you differently, but I make sure that my team, I'm really, really clear with my team with what's important to them is important to me.
Okay.
So I'm really, when my team started, we had an open, so I was quite lucky my team all started at the same time. We had a session where we all talked through our journeys. We all talked through our journeys around what led us to be here in that room that day.
That moment, that minute.
Day. What was our stories, you know, and everybody would, you know, share as much as you're comfortable to share.
Yeah.
And we all talked through our journeys, and there were some things that we spoke about that day that I said, you know, we never have to say that again, but we know now. We know what's led us to, and that led us to be such a tight-knit team, because we all just understood each other. And we have a respect for each other, and I always say if it's important to you, it's important to me, and we all have this shared vision of where we're going and what we're doing, and it's just having that human side to, you know, we all believe in equity, we all know what we're here to do, we all know where our goals are, we all have really open discussions, we all are quite free, and I genuinely try to create an environment for my team where, you know, bring your whole self to work with me isn't just a catchphrase, where they can really bring their whole, bring your mess, bring your,
they don't have to leave a little part of them.
No, they don't. No, they don't. They absolutely don't. And you know, if you're having a bad day, have a bad day. If you need to scream, you have to scream. You know, and if something's going on in the world that will impact them, I pick up the phone to them and say, right, you know, one thing I have done on several occasions when something's gone, I've gone cancelling all non-essential meetings. If we need to do that, we need to. If you need to scream, it's fine. Like, and it's just acknowledging. You know, I try to be the leader that I feel that I needed sometimes, that I didn't get when I needed. And
who in your life and your career have been some of the most influential leaders or people that have inspired you, and what have you learned from them?
So in my career, going to hate me for this, but isn't Toby Barnes. So he was actually my first, when I went to Travis Perkins, so I actually got hired by somebody else, and on my first day when I got there, she told me that she was leaving, and she'd hired me on a 6-month contract. So I was like, she said, I'm leaving. I was like, oh great, that's great. And in walked Toby Barnes.
And his role at the time was?
He was the head of resourcing.
Okay.
And he sat next to me, and he was the one that actually after 6 months said to me, you're not, you know, I said, I'm not really that good at resourcing. He said, yeah, recruiting. He said, yeah, I know.
But he gave you the opportunity.
And he gave me the opportunity. Yeah. And there were some days, and actually now knowing that I'm neurodiverse, it all makes sense, because I didn't know I was neurodiverse until I knew I had an acquired neurodiversity, but I didn't know I had ADHD until about 6 months ago. But there was days where I did my insights test, you know, when you do the colours, and I was sunshine yellow, and I just didn't understand data. And there was days where I would sit in Toby's office and I would cry. I would literally cry because I just didn't understand numbers, and he would say, no, you do, you can do it, you can do it. And I'd say, no, I can't. I'd say, if it's that easy, you do it yourself. And I'd have my tantrum and go out, I'm going to go make a coffee, I'll come back, and you can do it. And he'd sit with me, and I redid my insights test, and I was equally blue, which was data, and yellow. And he just gave me that time, and he believed in me. And, you know, where people used to say, you know, she's a bit, all the stereotypes that come with being somebody like me, he would always have, I'd always turn around, and when I was trawling through the mud, he'd always be standing behind me. But the most important thing is, with Toby, I never had to leave a piece of myself behind. He never ever asked me to change, ever. And throughout my whole career, he's continued to be a mentor. He's continued to be that person. When I feel like it's all a little bit too overwhelming, I can always pick up the phone to Toby, and he's always there to just be that person for me. And he's been the most inspirational person that, for that time that he was there and continued on, he's always been that person where I didn't have to leave that piece of me behind.
Got it. And then outside of the workplace, any other influential figures?
I think it would be my aunt. My aunt is, I lost my aunt when I was 13, but she was probably the most inspirational person. She just taught me kindness. She just taught me, she was just the most phenomenal human.
I want to know who the person is who piqued your inquisitiveness and your desire to say why. I wonder if that's a self-led trait, or maybe your aunt helped you.
Well, and I think it was when I when I lost my aunt, I lost my aunt because of medical inequities.
Okay.
And that's when I first...
That's the beginning of a why.
And that was when I didn't understand why.
Okay.
That we didn't have to lose her if they had have looked a little bit harder and they just chose not to. And that's when I started, and I was 13 years old and I didn't understand why, because I was a child.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to question, this is not right, and had her skin colour been different, she would have still been here. And that's what piqued my why. And it started very, very young, and that's when I realised that actually that's when I experienced racism and everything else as a child, but that's when I really realised that this is really embedded in our medical system, and I was 13 years old, and that's when my real why started. Okay. I think was when I was 13.
No, I can imagine. One of the questions I always ask our guests is, I think I know the answer to this now, by the way. Who else would make a great guest that we should interview on Higher Thinking?
And he's going to hate me. He's going to absolutely hate me because he's a real introvert and he hates stuff like that. But Toby, sorry, Toby.
Very good. We'll see if we can contact him, but we don't have to put anybody in front of the camera who doesn't want to. I always end the interviews, and thank you for your time today, with the same question. The title of the video series is Higher Thinking, as you know. What is your one golden rule for successful talent acquisition?
We've got a lot of privilege and we've got a lot of control, and I think just be people-centric and use it wisely, I think is my golden rule. Do things differently is my golden rule.
Appreciate it. Hannah, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you. That concludes episode 4 of Higher Thinking, and my thanks to Hannah for a truly inspiring conversation. A couple of takeaways for me is the fact that ED&I is the responsibility of an entire organisation and not just HR. And I guess most poignantly of all, let's all try and build a workplace where people that come to work don't have to feel like they have to leave a piece of them behind. We'll see you next time.